Thank you very much.
So I just started recording, guys. That's all.
Okay. Thank you to each and every one of you for allowing us to write an article on the emotion and the unbearable emptiness of losing a big game. So thank you for doing this. Second thing, the session will be recorded, so that way we'll avoid misquoting or taking things out of context. We want to make sure that this is done properly. We have pledged to send you the article that Rad and I will write for Think Lacrosse, just to be sure that we get your approval on the content, and that what you have said, what you've shared with us, is acceptable, and you give us your permission to write it. We would like to go at this session with the utmost respect for the athletes that you were, and in no way are we considering that we are having conversations with losers. Quite to the contrary, we're having a conversation with great athletes who've encountered in one game a difficult situation that has lived on for many years. So there is no way that in any remote way we consider that we are having a conversation with people who are losers. To the contrary. Just so that we move, I think you all know one another, but let me give you a few minutes to introduce yourselves. And afterwards, I ask that you just jump into the conversation. I'll try to moderate, but I think that's going to be an easy job for me to do. Just let's look at a conversation between great athletes on a topic that is difficult and that has carried on for numerous years. So just go ahead, introduce yourself. Let's start with the only one amongst us who's a Hall of Famer. So Dave, you go first.
Okay. Well, first of all, can you hear me?
Very well.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Because I had issues a couple of weeks. That's why I had my tech team here. One of whom is 8 years old. How embarrassing is that? Anyway, my name is Dave Evans, and Gary, we met actually at the Canada Games. I think I mentioned that. Yeah. I don't think I did do the final game. I saw a little bit of a clip, and I don't think it was me refereeing. Maybe I did the bronze medal game with BC. But anyway, I was involved with that same Summer Games. I do vividly remember the Ontario game with you guys with Nova Scotia. So good to meet everybody.
Jimmy. And we hear Jim Calder.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Pierre, nice to see you, and good to see everybody else. I know I've met all of you over time, and great to be part of this evening. And just looking forward to talking about what reunited me with Canada. Really was kind of dropping in out of nowhere and playing for the national team in '78. So look forward to talking about lacrosse in Canada.
Joe?
Hey, Joe Cambria, Montreal, Quebec. So talk about that '77 Canada game. Pleasure to meet you guys. I all know you by name, and so it's great to finally meet with you and be able to talk with you guys and hear your story. So yeah, happy to be here.
Gary?
Yeah, hi there, guys. Thanks, Pierre, for letting me take part in this activity. It's going to be lots of fun, I'm sure. And Joe, in '77, you played with Quebec. Did you play against each other? Because I coached the Nova Scotia team in '77.
I think we're in different pools.
Yeah, that's what I thought happened.
Yeah, I
think we lost to Ontario, and you guys then went to the finals with them.
Yeah, that's right. There was a crossover.
Yeah,
right?
Crossover. Yeah. So yeah, that was '73 Canada Games for me, and we went unexpectedly by many people, not us, but many people didn't think we'd have a chance against any teams there in the Canada Games, and we ended up going to finals with Ontario, losing essentially by a goal. They scored in the open net.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do everybody know Rad?
Yep.
Yeah, know him now.
I met Gary earlier. I know who Jim is. I've learned the past year that Joe Cambria is the greatest player to ever to Quebec and should be on the Hall of Fame, and we'll work on that. Dave Evans, did I pick up their debut? You were a referee and a goalie? Did you
Yeah, I refereed on the 73 Canada games.
So refereeing a goalie, you obviously love abuse. So anyways, I do know these folks, certainly by reputation. And I think Jim's probably the most accomplished in terms of publishing for lacrosse, I think.
Very much, yes.
Every time I go to an AGM, I'm buying another Jim Calder book.
Thank you.
Cool.
Listen, I'm Pierre. I attended the 73 game that Gary was involved with. I obviously attended the 77 one. And I also attended in Brantford the 73 game that Dave allowed 9 goals in Brantford. I was not part of Jim Calder's U.S. experience.
Let me correct that. Let me correct you, Pierre, before you go too far. Bear in mind that game, I did not start that game. I went in and it was 3-0 early in the game. We got behind 3-0 in the first, I don't know, 4 minutes or something like that. So I was only good for 6, but I was good for the winning goal. So I'll take that.
Let's start with one first question. Obviously, these were 4 important games for each one of you. Did you ever think you might lose the game before it started? Did you ever think it was a possibility that you'd lose that game?
I'm gonna
Go ahead, guys.
I was going to say, I don't think that any player or athlete in a situation like that goes in thinking that they're not going to win, right? If you made it to that level, you've built up this thinking that anything's possible and you can win, right? So I for myself, I consider it, I never thought that I'd lose that game. I was going in thinking I was going to win that game.
Gary?
Yeah, we had great confidence going into that final game because the night before we'd gone into a double overtime and lost in a sudden death after we had the lead in the first overtime, which was at 10 minutes. And then then it went into a sudden death and we lost by a goal. So we had all the confidence in the world. You got to understand this team, we were together for 2 years, had only been playing the game for 4 years. And our coaches were excellent. Bill Manley and Garnet Knight. Bill Manley was the technician. Garnet was the guy that kept everybody together and raw kind of guy. And when we went into that final game, we had our eye on the gold medal. That's what we trained for 2 years. And we had full confidence and losing by a goal.
Mm-hmm. Dave?
Yeah, I think we definitely we had a very young team. We had like 73. That was only my second year in senior. We probably had over half our team was 25 or under. So we were a little bit naive going out, and none of us had played in a Man Cup before. But we were cocky. You know, we'd won the West, not handily, but reasonably convincingly. Finished first in the league and won the playoffs. I guess the only thing that was kind of in the back of our mind is that this whole one game thing was sort of an all new experience. Now we're used to seeing and playing in. I played on a couple of Minto Cups and best of 7 series. So the whole one game thing, you always sort of know in the back of your mind that anything can happen. And but certainly we all felt we were going to win the game. That's what we went for. That's what the purpose of going was.
Jimmy?
I'm really talking about 2 games, which I hope that's all right. We were playing, one was a national championship. We were going for our 3rd straight at Hobart, and we felt that we would go in and win that game against Roanoke at the end of May that year. And but then earlier in the year, we were kind of in a specialty game because it was a unique situation. Both Cornell had gone 27-0 over a 2-year period, and they were one of our biggest rivals. We were the little school up the road from them, 1,800 students, and they had like 18,000 students. And we had been snowed out the year before, so we had built up a 23-0 record, and they had a 28-0 record. And Sports Illustrated called it the Super Bowl of lacrosse. So that one, I have to say, I didn't know if we were going to win that one going in, because Cornell was at the top of its entire program at that time. But the Roanoke game, we really felt we were going to win that game against Roanoke. So kind of saw both ends of it that same year, and then lost both those games, but fortunate enough to come back to Canada that year and playing a great game over in Manchester, where we were able to take the US. So it balanced it out for me.
Help me out with this. Why is it that good athletes, as you were, you can win and you can lose in anything that you do before it starts? What is it with great athletes that you simply don't think you're going to lose? What is it with athletes that makes it that you believe there's no way you're going to lose that game?
Well, I think we're coached to win even from an early age. That, it's, I guess maybe host league, or when I ran my little minor program, we used to add the scores together. But once you get into a competitive situation, you have to, it's winning. That's the reason you're going. You learn to accept losing, but you're there to win. And that's how you're very often coached, especially at higher levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think from the time you get about, for me at least, around junior, I guess, that's what you're there for. You're there to win. And as you get better as an individual, I think your confidence builds to the point that you feel you're going to win. That's just your psyche, I suppose. And like Gary said, that's what I don't know about the real early age. Obviously, I didn't start till I was 13, so it was a little later for me. But I think when I hit about junior A, that's when it was, you were there to win, and that's what the purpose of playing was, really. Still to have fun and have a good time and camaraderie and everything else. But once the face of the ball was faced off, you were there to win, and you felt you were going to win.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so you're playing that game. The four of you played different games, obviously, but you're playing that one game. You get the impression when the game is on, how very competitive game, that it might be slipping away from you. Is there a moment during one of your games where you kind of figured it's slipping away? It's not going to happen.
I'll jump into that, Pierre. I'll start on that one. I think, it's in hindsight, and I remember that game going in thinking we were going to win, but there was a moment, and the moment was when we made the announcement that we were going to go with one goaltender instead of Michel Lebessiere was, I thought, our best goaltender, and I kind of had that confidence in that goalie, right? And when we made the decision, the coaching staff made the decision to go with Pierre, the other one, with all good reasons. I remember that was one moment where I felt like, oh, right, we might be losing an edge, right, that I believed in.
And that was before the game. And that was before the game started.
That was when the game started. And then, obviously, the game didn't start very well. If you remember, I remember it. They just, Pierre couldn't stop anything. It was like not very good. We pulled them out, but they had already like maybe 4 or 5 goals on us, right? We put Michel in, which I thought should have been the goalie, but just because I had that confidence, it's me. And again, we were coming back, and whether it was on purpose or not, they took the goalie. I mean, I remember on that power play, they went for his head, right? And Michel had to get out of the game, go get stitches, and then they scored again a few goals, and then he came back. So that's the moment that I thought that, well, I think this one, it might be hard for us to recoup. And that happened probably in the second period where, I had that feeling, right?
Gary, you played till the end. It was 7-6, packed house at Queen's Park Arena, and then they scored an empty net goal.
Yeah, we were in that game right up to the bitter end. In the last 3 minutes of the game, we had, I think, 5 shots on three other attempts, two of them that were blocked by a stick just in the way, post that was hit, and a loose ball got them the win. You know, well, put the game away. Don Koharski, guys might know him, NHL referee. Well, he scored the sixth goal and put us within one, and we still had a little time left, and we were full game to put that ball in the net to tie it, and then we'd just like the night before look at what would happen in overtime. And well, it didn't happen. It, it was won by North.
In your case, it didn't really slip away.
There was no time in that game until I saw, well, for me personally, till I saw that ball go in the net with 3 seconds left in the game. So
Dave, 9-5.
Yeah, I honestly don't remember. I do remember that my goaltending partner started the game, and we had alternated throughout the season. Now, I had played virtually. We alternated during the season pretty much evenly, and then in the playoffs, Peter Block, who is our coach, said that we're going to alternate, but if one of you gets on a roll, he would stick with them, and which ended up being me. So I played pretty much the whole finals, but he went with Donnie Hamilton to start the Mann Cup game, and I think partly and it sounds kind of silly looking back on it now, but partly for kind of sentimental reasons, because Hammy at that time was well into his 30s and probably would have retired if we had won that game, and also had the experience. I mean, he got a shutout in the Mann Cup. Now, granted, that was quite a few years earlier, but anyway, but I don't really remember, even though we were behind early. Obviously, that's not a good thing, but you've also got lots of time to catch up. So we got behind 3-0, and it was I don't even know if it was 5 minutes into the game. We were down three zip, and we switched. I went in and played the rest of the game, and we started to come back, but we never really got it within. I don't think we ever got within a couple of goals. So but because of that, there wasn't really a time that we felt that the game was slipping away. Until probably, as I say, I can't remember who scored the last couple of goals, but I would think not until the last. Probably a few minutes, we probably thought, okay, we're down 3, and we were playing a very good, very, very experienced Peterborough team, and we were also up against an incredibly hot goaltender. I mean, Pat Baker was the MVP of the game. We outshot them. I actually looked this up. I forget what the shots were. Our shot total was in the 50s, and theirs was around, I don't know, 33, 34, something like that. And Pat had a phenomenal game, had a tremendous game.
So that game didn't slip away from you. You were down from the start and tried to come back, but didn't.
Pretty much, yeah. We were down early, and we'd get a couple, they'd get a couple, we'd get a couple, they'd get a couple, we'd get one, they'd get two, we'd get two, they'd get one, sort of thing. That's the way I remember it. And the crazy thing is, we had a fellow by the name of Bruce Todman, who is from back east. So Jim, you might know of him. It actually passed away a few years ago, unfortunately. But Bruce had come out and played for us in '73, and he went back as soon as we finished our final series in against Coquitlam. He went back and he was going to watch the last couple of Brantford Peterborough games, and we got this scouting report from Bruce that Pat Baker was having a real tough time with outside shots. So that's one of the reasons. The shot totals were so high, because we had some good outside shooters, and we were shooting the ball from well outside. And then this is almost, I don't know, Keystone Cops kind of thing, but somebody noticed, I think at the end of the first period, that Pat was wearing glasses. So I guess he realized he was having trouble. Maybe he was wearing contacts before and having some problems, but he was just phenomenal that game. And obviously once we realized the outside shooting thing wasn't great scouting, we changed our game plan. But by that time, and I don't even remember those first 3 goals. I mean, I wasn't playing, but they weren't bad goals or anything. We just got off to a slow start. And one of the things I do remember, and because the game was televised, I think I explained that in a little thing I sent out. It was only CBC would televise it, but only the deciding game, and that's the only way they could do it. So we were the visiting team. So we were called out for announcements, and we stood out in the corridor to be announced. And we stood out there forever. And I don't know if there were lighting problems or something. We stood out there and stood out there. Eventually, they told us to go back in the dressing room. And then about 2 minutes later, we went out and went on the floor. And that didn't help because Peterborough, as the home team, they hadn't been called out to the corridor. So they just, they sat in the dressing room and talked and whatever and kept stretched. And so that didn't help us, I'm sure, getting off to a bad start. But no, I didn't. Even though we were down 3 early, it didn't slip away per se.
Jimmy, you lost by 1 in the final minutes or seconds of the game. Did you have the impression it was slipping away, or it was that?
No, both the Roanoke and the Cornell game, we were right there, right to the last minute in both games, and then it just that's how the loss unfolded. Was in the Roanoke game, they ran a great trick play where they snuck a long stick over at the midfield, kept the midfielder back, and threw a bomb across field to the long stick, and he went in, and they had a 4-on-3, and he surprised our goalie by actually shooting with a long stick, and beat one of the great goalies, Rick Blick, of all, in field lacrosse, one of the great goalies. And Rick, I would have put in anytime, anywhere to represent us. He was one of the great goalies I've had a chance to play with. The Cornell game, so I lost. That game was lost to the coach, was Paul Griffin, and I grew up with the Griffin family. They kind of took me under their wing on Long Island, and because I came from a single parent household, and their dad coached me in all these different sports, and so I knew Paul there. And then John Griffin was the goalie for Cornell, the guy I grew up with, the same age for all those years. And John Griffin, we were down 7-2 at half to Cornell, and it was outdoors in April. It was chilly, snow around the field. And then John Griffin made 2 incredible saves. We'd come back 10-9. We were up on Cornell after the halftime, and he made 2 great saves. And then they ended up scoring the next 2, and then we chased, and they won by 2. But it was really down to the last minute that in both games.
It never slipped away. You didn't have that feeling, that long, terrible feeling that it's happening to me, it's happening now, and it's slipping away. It didn't happen that way for you.
No, these were all who's going to get the last shot, basically. So both of them were like that. Yeah.
Okay, so game's over. You all regroup in the dressing room. I'm not sure if regroup is the correct word. What do you remember of the mood? I was in both the 73 and the 77 dressing rooms. I've seen Gary's dressing room and Joe's dressing room also. What's the mood when you, as team leaders or captain or goaltender or star player, what's the mood in the dressing room? Is it anger? Is it disappointment, sadness, discouragement? You lost the game that you thought you were going to win, that big game. What's the general mood, Gary?
You just listed 4 emotions, and I think they'd all exist in any room that lost a championship game. In our experience, it was a little different. All those emotions were there, but it was a little different because we were given the silver medal, and it was a Canada game. So there was an element of celebration in our minds, I guess. But there was guys throwing their gear down. There was guys, shedding tears. There was guys giving hugs. Our coaches came around, shook our hands. Yourself, you were in our dressing room, so we had people from other parts of Canada coming in to congratulate us on our effort. It was a mixed bag. And the other interesting thing was that we had to go back out onto the floor very quickly because they were going to do the medal ceremony. So it was kind of like a strange kind of celebration for losing, but then the reality of losing what we really wanted, the gold medal, that hit pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
And hit, as we got back and reflected when we were back in our rooms back at the high school where we were staying, it started to hit then, but it was all those things you mentioned there, Pierre, were going on.
Joe, you were team captain.
Yep.
What was the mood in your dressing room?
Yeah, I guess I'm going to say that it's probably the one moment in the team where I really didn't really realize what was going around me. I was obviously very disappointed for a number of reasons. A lot of pressure was coming off, but I've made this comment before. You play to win the bronze medal, right? The silver medal is won in the semifinals, right? When you got 4 teams, and the 2 that are going to go to that's the silver medal, that's the win, right? That's the celebration. But when you go in the gold medal game, you don't win silver, you lose gold. So that was the sense. It was not a sense of accomplishment. It was a sense of having missed, right? And the same thing as you, Gary, right? This the last game of the games. We had to go out right away. They gave us the medals. Like we're not even going to the dressing room. We've got, if I remember well, Pierre, right? That's why I remember. And you didn't have really time to reflect. I wasn't mad. I was just very disappointed because kind of realized that this is the only opportunity that I might have again. And there was also a lot of more other things that winning that gold medal wasn't just individual. It would have meant a lot for lacrosse in Quebec. It would have meant a lot for what we were trying to build in Quebec. We were different because this was I'm going to call it an all-star team. This was a selected team. So Gary, you had 2 years, right? Jim, you were on a team that won championships before together. Dave, you guys played all season together, right? So I don't think that the unity or we had 2 weeks to build a team spirit together. So I don't recall really having that a team support, or it was really individual. I felt this was all on me. It was my loss, a team loss, but it wasn't. We weren't like a team that had bonded for a full year, right? So a little bit different, I think, right? When you get into that situation.
Dave, Gary and Joe were junior players. They were probably 19 or in that age group. You were playing senior ball. Your players were older than juniors. How do you react, or how did the team react in the dressing room, adults, after losing the Man Cup?
Well, I think that the thing I remember most about the dressing room after that game was silence. I think everybody was just spent, because obviously that's one of the things, as you guys all know, when you get behind early, you have to work that much harder for the remaining whatever number of minutes after you get behind. And and we worked our butts off, and like Gary said, all those emotions you mentioned were there. There were tears, especially from some of the, there were a couple of guys, Bob Babcock, for instance, who had come out of retirement the previous year to play for us. He knew going in that was going to be his last game, and fully expecting to win. And he knew when he was done, when the game was over, that was it. I probably shed some tears because I was frustrated, and just because we had lost. But I think the one thing with comparing a junior team to a senior team, the junior team, everybody's basically the same age. Whereas we had, as I say, we had a group of guys that were 25 and under, 24 and under. And I think when you're that young playing senior, there's still that feeling in the back of your mind that, well, yeah, this sucks. We lost. I feel terrible. But hey, we're going to be back in this thing, and maybe the year after. There's lots more years left. I mean, I was 23, so I had another, as it turned out, another 9 or 10 years of senior lacrosse ahead of me. We're going to be here again. For the older guys, I think it was a lot tougher. The guys we had a few guys that were, 29, 30, 31 in that range. And, the times running out to have another shot at it. So I think their emotions were certainly a little more, but I think as a team, it was just disappointment, discouragement. Once everybody sort of got back to talking, we genuinely felt because the one game thing really hurt us because we had a young team, we had an aggressive team, we had a physical team. Peterborough, it was an interesting situation because a lot of the Peterborough guys like Johnny Davis, Cy Coombs, guys like that had retired, and I don't know exactly all the details, but they were kind of stumbling along during the OLA regular season, and Bobby Allen, the coach, I guess, dragged these guys out of retirement, and all great players. So obviously, Karn Collins, Pat Baker, they all came out of retirement and ended up beating Brantford, and Brantford were favored. I'm assuming that's one of the reasons the game was played in Brantford. They probably had to pick a venue well in advance because of the TV thing, and everybody assumed we'd be playing Brantford. To be quite honest with you, but they had a veteran team, and I really think that had it been a 7-game series, it would have been very much to our advantage. You never know, but common sense tells you that because of the youth and the physicality and whatnot, that was maybe the most disappointing thing.
But mostly silence in the dressing room. Jim?
It was silence and a few tears. And, after a few minutes, Peter Black, our coach, and Ross McDonald, our captain, spoke. And it was, I guess, what you normally say at a time like this is that hold your heads up. You got nothing to be ashamed of, which we didn't. But that doesn't really make you feel any better, to be quite honest with you. You still feel horrible.
Jim, feel across games, dressing room, in both games. What was the mood in the dressing room?
Well, I think the Cornell one, it was like we were like a senior B team playing a senior A team, I guess. I had a question actually for you guys. Has there been a case where senior B teams have beaten senior A teams pretty regularly or anything like that? Or is everybody usually slotted in the right
Not to my knowledge.
Not that I know
Not
of.
in my experience.
No, so this would have been like a senior B team beating the best senior A team that had come along in a number of years, against Cornell. So we took the challenge, but they were, they were an incredible team. And I just remember our coaches after that game, we were upset. We played so hard and we brought it back from 7-2 to 10-9. We were up and, we didn't, unfortunately we lost, but I just remember our coaches just basically honestly meaning it, like, you guys have nothing to even be upset about, the way you played today. It was one of those few games in your life where you really did lay it all out and there was nothing you can do about it. It's what, that's what the lacrosse gods wanted that day. That was Cornell. But then, a month and a half later when we were playing Roanoke, we had beaten them in the national semifinal the year before in a really tight game. I think we won by 2. And I knew nothing but gold medals for Hobart because I was now in my 3rd year and we'd won 2 national championships. And we were expecting to bring home a 3rd one, that day. And just, again, anything can happen on any day. And they deserved it. Like they've told me, the guys on that team, that they felt out of 5 games we would have won 3. That's the way they saw it, and it was just that particular day. And I'll tell you something, our goalie, and Dave, you'll like this, like Rick Blick, after that game he was just beside himself. He felt terrible about that ball going in off a long stick shot, and they gave us these lucite medals with the NCAA medals, in them. And that was our award. Well, Ricky got his, and there was a pond like about 30 yards away over the back fence, and he just chucked it like right in front of the NCAA guy over the fence and into the pond, right? And that's the way it was. I still like. There's a guy, Terry Corcoran, who's the guy you'd want to have lead you into Iwo Jima, But Terry can be a little bit overboard sometimes. He still is at this late stage in life. He was pissed at me for talking to the Roanoke guys just over the last year in a documentary that was being done. And, that's how he's still, he's still mad, going, like, I just thought that maybe time to,
big difference for you, losing one game where you're the underdog and nothing to lose
yes,
versus losing the game where you're the favorite, right? So,
yeah,
big difference, right?
yes,
Celebration, you're celebrating and losing because you're not supposed to be there versus, losing when you're supposed to be one, right? It's a big difference. Yeah.
That's right, Joe. Two different feelings. Like like the first one against Cornell, you really couldn't feel bad about things. Like, God, we showed a lot, so.
You guys were all in different positions, but whether goaltender or star player, you're the leaders of the team in some way. Did you, not right after the game, but after that game, did you blame yourself?
No, I certainly didn't. I don't.
I couldn't say I blamed anybody on our squad because we all put it out 100%. I could say I could have scored in that last 2 minutes. I had a shot in that, but it is what it is. Everybody played their hearts out, and but no, I'd say there was no letdowns by anybody.
Joe, you were the
Yeah.
best player of that team.
I'm going to say that, not during the tournament, not that game, but, like, I do remember getting comments, right, even from my junior coach, when I got back and basically saying that, what people don't know is that when you go on you put a team together like that. I remember the coach came over to me and, I was like, a top scorer all the time. And I remember telling me, you're going to play a little bit of a different role, right? We've got other good players. Joe, I'm going to need you on the power play. I was always a shooter or a point man, even if I didn't have a good shot. That's the position I played. He told me, well, you're not going to be a point man, or you're not going to be a shooter. You're going to go to crease. And the reason I'm going to put you on the crease is because you're super good with loose balls and you're going to help the team, right? So he kind of gave me a different role, which I took very seriously because I wanted to win. Obviously, you want to do it. So not when we finished, but I do remember, and I mentioned that we were getting a lot of press conference or press coverage and, comments coming back saying, I could have scored more or, that type of thing that came out. But for myself, I knew very well that I was fulfilling, I had to play a different role, right? Defensively, nobody remembers what I did defensively. They only remember how many goals I scored, right? So no, I don't think I felt that, and like everybody else, I don't blame anybody on my team, not even the coach, right? Every decision we made or we made, there was a good reason for it, right? It just didn't pan out. But yeah, I didn't after. I did a little bit, but after that, I kind of brought it back on myself and saying, hey, you know what? I really did the best of what I needed to do, right? I was really proud of what I actually accomplished, right? Yeah.
Jim, had you scored one more, you would have won. Did you blame yourself?
No, like I was a midfielder at Hobart, and basically our job was to get the ball to our attacker. We never saw it again. Once we got it up the field.
Dave Evans, I'm wondering if you thought privately, if I'd started, we would have won.
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
Did you hold it against your
you give
coach?
reasons why they started.
Oh no, God, no! I never. As a matter of fact, I was asked if I minded if Donnie started. I mean, it was logic would have said that I would have started because I was MVP in the playoffs in the WLA. We beat Coquitlam in 6 games, and I ended up being MVP of the series. So common sense tells you that I would have started, and I had no issues with it at all. And because, good Lord, you're putting a guy in with a lot more experience than I have, and who knows? I could have gone in. I could have started the game. We could have been behind 4-0. Who knows?
Sure.
You never know.
Did you guys?
But yeah, to answer Rad's question, yeah, probably. There were probably times that I had enough confidence in myself to think, God, bugger, I wish I'd started that game, because who knows, it might have made a difference. But
I
Did you guys
I
look?
just want to say, I think it makes a difference in the players, because I think as players, we all had confidence in a certain goalie, right? Or we always felt better with certain. I mean, you never say it, right? You never talk about it, but you're going into a game, and if you got confidence in your goaltender and that's the guy, right? If it's not a Nets, you're going in with a little something that says I got to do more, or I hope I hope he's got a good he's going to have a good game, right? So
yeah, and I think with my situation,
yeah,
just to sort of echo what Joe just said, I don't know what the other guys thought. They might have been disappointed. They might have been surprised, puzzled, whatever, because it just made so much sense for me to start. And I certainly never asked anybody what they thought, because that would have just been totally disrespectful to everybody. But that's more what I've thought about. Is not so much my feelings, because I know darn well, as I say, I could have started and crap the bed, and it could have been even worse. But what was the feeling amongst the rest of the players? Because obviously they had confidence in both of us, but because I was the one that basically played the whole playoffs in the West. Maybe there might have been a little more confidence in me. I don't know. But I certainly see your point, Joe. I think, and I tend to agree. But who knows? I don't know.
You guys didn't underperform, but there probably were players on that team on that game that did not perform up to expectations. When the game is over, do you look down? Do you look sternly? Do you blame the players on your team that didn't perform, that didn't live up to the expectations? Gary.
No, not at all. I can't remember a moment in the game where I thought, geez, he could have caught that one. He could have made a better shot. We were so focused on our own job that we weren't there to evaluate. We weren't allowed. Geez, if we criticized one of our players on the floor or in a practice, Garnet Knight would tear us apart. Just no way we're going to allow any of that to take place. We had full respect for every player on the team, and whatever happened, and we knew everybody was going to give their 100% or plus. So, no, never saw that.
Joe?
I think the only time you can really be upset with one of our players is if they do something selfish, like bluntly selfish or undisciplined, and cause a situation. I think that's it didn't happen during the games, right? So I don't see it, but for myself, I never even thought of looking down the bench and blaming somebody for any loss, never mind that one game, right? You're part of a team. You're a team, right? You're brothers. You're at war together. So unless they do something super stupid and selfish, you never blame one of your teammates, right?
No. The only person we blamed, and it was more in jest than anything else, was Bruce Tobin for his scouting report. Pat Baker can't stop the outside shots. Thanks a lot, Tony. Thanks for that.
Yeah.
And we gave him the gears for that long after. But no, everybody gives their best, and you can't.
Right.
I mean, sometimes they go in, sometimes they don't go in. You would never ever look down on your teammates.
Jim, same for you?
We were a complete team, and whatever happened to all of us. You know what I mean? So it was never looked at individually. And I just remember against Roanoke, what we got hit. It was kind of weather related. Like they came up from the deep South Virginia, and they'd been playing for like 3 weeks. And the weather that we were having that day of the championship game, and we hadn't seen that yet that year. Where it was so hot and muggy. And I just remember as a midfielder, just feeling like we were running in sand as the game went on, because the heat was so oppressive and just sucked the life out of you, in it. And it seemed they had a little edge, a little little spark because they had been in that weather for a little bit longer, maybe. You know, I've thought that since then because I spent a couple of summers down there playing summer league, and I kind of figured out what they were used to, you know, down in that part of the woods, you know. So, but as a team, we that's why we were as good as we were because everybody contributed, and our coach would knock us down to 1.5 midfield lines from 5 midfield lines in the big games. And, you know, fortunately you could run all day if the weather cooperated, you could run all day, you know, but that day felt slow, you know, just felt slow and sluggish as you know, and I think our whole team was off by a little bit that way. And Roanoke rose to the occasion, and God bless them, you know, they did what they had hoped that they could do. So that they had their turn.
One of the comment that strikes me is maybe it's because you're all great athletes, but you never blame the loss on the officials.
No, that was not an issue.
But you know, and we all know, so many teams just say, you know, we lost, we were robbed, it was stolen from us. We lost because of the refs. You guys didn't say that at all. Nobody even mentioned officials.
It wouldn't be fair to the game. You know, they select usually some of your top officials to do those, you know, gold medal games, you know, Man Cup games, what have you, and they're doing a good job. And in our game, in my experience, in '73, they were very fair and reasonable.
Okay, sorry.
I'm just going to say the highest compliment I could give the referees is I don't remember who they were. I don't remember anything about them. That's probably the best compliment you can give them.
Joe, you were cut off.
Yeah. I was just going to say that actually in the round robin tournament when we played Ontario, we lost that game in the round robin, and I think we must have played 2/3 of the game with a man short, right? It was one of those games where the referee, you know, I'd be running on the breakaway with the ball, the guy would trip me, and I would get 2 minutes for trip or interference, right? It was that kind of a game, but I remember that we turned it into a positive. We kind of said, hey, if we lost this game by, I don't even remember a score, but it wasn't like a blowout, and we played a man short for 2/3 of this game, we can beat these guys easily, right? So that game, the one game that I remember that you could have blamed the referees, it actually helped us build the confidence of saying, wow, right, if we play them again, we're going to beat them, right?
Yeah. Okay, just coming back, you all mentioned that, you know, in the dressing room afterwards, it was disbelief, it was discouragement, it was grief, it was silence. As team leaders, was it your responsibility to pick the team up from that defeat? Who did it? Who in your dressing room took the responsibility to somehow bring the team together and have pride?
I don't remember anybody standing out. You know, I might have said a few words. Our team captain, Dougie, would have said a few words. A couple guys that were just players might have said, you know, come on, guys, pick your head up. We did, you know, we played as hard as we did. You know, we outshot them. It is what it is. And then they said, look, we got to get
I think we lost you, Gary.
Oh, you lost me?
Yeah.
No,
I got it.
I've got him.
Okay.
Am I still there? Yeah, no, you know, there was a few guys, a couple of the older guys on the team would say a few things, and I don't remember exactly what they said, but it was to pick up the mood, and there was a lot of people in the dressing room that weren't even part of the team. Like Pierre, you were in our dressing room. You were from Quebec, and you know, came in, and I'm sure you had some kind words for us, and we had our chef de mission come down and say a few words. So really wasn't any team member. I know Garnet and Bill Manley would have had a few words and they weren't very complimentary coaches. So when they said something nice, you kind of you must have done something right, you know. So, anyways, that's the way I experienced it.
Joe, was it your responsibility, team captain, to pick the team, or who picked it up? Who?
Yeah, so You know what? It was in hindsight, the responsibility that I had, the biggest one was trying to put this team together, Pierre, right? We always had some players that were holding out, right, to come out to try out for the team, the good players. I remember before, after, no, I don't remember. I remember people coming over, like you and people like that, but I don't think it was my responsibility. And the truth is, I wouldn't have been able to do it, right? I had to pick myself up. I think later on during that night, right after the ceremonies, when we got with the players, at that point, I think I really kind of spoke to every player that I ran into, or was, basically thanking them and make them say, hey, what we did was unbelievable, right? But after the game, no, I didn't feel it was my responsibility.
David, as a goaltender, you're there. Who picks the team up? You're senior. You're adults. You're not junior players.
No, it was generally, I don't remember. The only people I can remember, as I say, for it seemed like an eternity, but it was probably only, a few minutes. But it was just like everybody with their kind of head between their knees, and some people shedding some tears. But I know our coach, Peter Black, said some things after. But I mean, I've been in that situation as a coach, and I'm sure most of you guys have too. Really, what do you say? You basically say the same thing as every other coach says in that situation, or captain, is that hey, you've got nothing to be ashamed of. We got this far. It wasn't our night, and we got beaten by a very good team and a hot goaltender and whatnot. I know our general manager Bob Perry came down after the game and said basically the same thing. The only player who really said anything, our captain Ross McDonald wasn't a real vocal type of a captain. He was purely a lead by example type of guy. He'd say a few things, but fellow by the name of Ward Sanderson, who was he was more of a kind of a tough guy, defensive player. Like in today's brand of lacrosse, he wouldn't be allowed to cross center floor, but which I don't even want to talk about that.
Let's not avoid it.
Ward was a lot more vocal, and I remember everybody was down in the dumps, and he was kind of, "Come on, guys, get your heads out of your hands." Basically the same message, but a little more vocal, a little more animated. The one thing I do remember is, as I say, CBC broadcast the game, and they had a camera come into the dressing room. And one of the announcers went over and said some words to Bob, as I say, Bob Babuak, this fellow who was probably in his mid-30s, had come out of retirement. We knew it was his last game, and he was sobbing. And I don't remember the question that was asked, but it was something. It was almost along the lines of, was it part of your game plan to shoot so stupidly? not exactly in those terms. Not exactly those terms, but a little more tactful than that. But and we a couple of the guys basically picked him up, and I don't know if it ever made it on CBC, but sort of escorted him gently out of the dressing room. I do remember that. But as far as anybody, I think the coach, the general manager, as much as you're a team, you're still everybody reacts differently to these situations, and you're too busy lifting yourself up, getting your own head out from behind your knees, and everybody else takes care of themselves.
Jim, in your case, you're one of the better players. Was it your responsibility to try to pick the team up after those very, very small losses?
No, we had a group a year ahead of me that was still there and had been the leaders for a few years. So I was in that next group that was right behind them. I came in as a freshman, and was given the incredible gift of being able to play on the first midfield line with two great players, and so there were guys there that were more in the position to say anything if they did, but
the older players.
I don't remember. I don't remember any. any of that in the locker room after we lost the national championship. I just think people just, we knew it was just what, it was, we wish we could have had that game over. That's all,
Mhm.
we felt better than the team that beat us, but that's the way it goes. So.
Tough question to ask, and bear with me if I'm not asking correctly. As young adults, when you were playing, in your social life, in your professional life, in your activities in general, you don't cry, you don't weep, you.
You don't know that, Pierre. You don't know that.
I missed what did you say?
I said you don't know that for sure.
Okay. Here's my question: why is it that in a tough sport, a demanding sport, why is it that athletes allow themselves to weep, to cry, to grieve, and to share that openly with teammates? I remember the dressing rooms, the two that I was in. Great athletes, great physical, great bodies, great minds, destroyed, allowing themselves to cry openly, and everybody did. What is it with sports that changes behaviors which are different in your social or your academic or your professional life than in your sports life? Why cry? Why do you cry?
Yeah, that's a tough question to answer. I thought about that question and thought about the guys that I saw crying in our dressing room. I didn't cry. I wasn't the one to cry. But I think the reason people cry, you're crying because you feel as though because you've lost, you've let somebody down. And who you've let down are the other 17 or 18 players that you've been running side by side with for 2 years, right? And you've given everything you have. And in sports, it's kind of different than in life. You give it all for a moment. If you're in a career and or in a relationship, that's long term. But when you're in a single game, there's one pile of emotion that goes into that performance. And then to have it in a losing format when it's over, it overwhelms people. And, you can be as hard nosed and tough as you can be, but when when it really hits you inside and you look around the room and you do an assessment of what's taking place, it'll bring the tears.
Mm-hmm. Joe, you lost sales
Yeah.
and you didn't cry. Why was it so overwhelming in
Well,
the game?
yeah, I think this is really something that's individual with every player in every situation. Like I started off by saying that you go into the game and you're going to win, right? You're thinking of winning, right? So you're programmed to win. Athletes do, you're visualizing the win, you're practicing to win. So you're going in the mindset that you're going to win. And then you've got the other added pressures, I think, that come along with it, right? Uh, Everybody's expecting you to do something or be more or special, and you need to live up to that, right? You want to live up to that. I think there's expectations that, I talked about it in my little thing, right? Like we're only kids. Quebec at that time is going through, the Parti Québécois in. Now they're talking about separation. We're going to the Canada Games. Right away, it's Quebec against the rest of the world. And you feel it, right? Like when I say the minister of sports came to see us off on the plane, right? And chanting, and it's like, okay, go out there and you've got that other added pressure of you're representing something bigger than just yourself and the team, right? So when the game is over and you lose, I'm going to go with Gary. So you have a sense of you let people down. Right? It's not as much yourself. I think you're thinking about all the pressure is off now, and you're saying, okay, right, because we didn't win, well, this might not happen, or we let these people down, and lacrosse in Quebec will not be recognized, or us as players, we won't be recognized as being as talented as the rest of the players in BC or Ontario, et cetera, right? So I think it's just a release of all that pressure and that feeling of I'm going to say emptiness, or say maybe this moment has slipped and we missed it, and we're not supposed to miss it, right? You're not supposed to miss that moment. That's it.
Dave?
Yeah, I think, I mean, as corny as it sounds, I mean, teams are like families. I mean, I think back to teams that I played on or coached, the amount of time we spent together, starting back when we started training back probably in, I don't know, March, I guess. Season usually started in late April. We were together 3, 4, sometimes 5 times a week, practicing, playing, socializing, and you really become a close knit group. And I think like well, both Gary and Joe said, when something like that happens, you suffer a defeat that number what you expect to win. There is a feeling that you've let people down. Like I didn't feel after that Man Cup game in '73. I didn't feel responsible particularly for the loss because I was the goalie of record, I suppose. But I always felt every game I played, certainly as an adult or in my late teens and into junior and into senior, I felt that if I didn't play well, I was letting the team down. And after a big game like that, that's so emotionally taxing, I had no shame whatsoever in shedding some tears. And I know a lot of our guys were like that, and nobody lost any respect for them or anything. So I think the whole familial thing and the thought that you're in somehow letting the group down, letting everybody down.
Jimmy?
I think we worked really, really hard, because we had a core group of lacrosse players, but then our coaches were brilliant in that they could take great football players or basketball players and turn them into, some of them, All-Americans, just because they knew how to take a raw athlete and get the most out of them, in the game of lacrosse. So I guess we worked really, really hard, and you only wanted one outcome at the end of that season because you felt that you put in more time than anybody else, so you deserved it. And that's really what it was all about. We couldn't have worked any harder.
That explains the weeping and the grief and the discouragement.
Yeah, like I think the worst I was my senior year, because here you are at 22 years of age down in the US, and there was no pro leagues to go to or anything like that.
Mhm.
There was really no level of lacrosse to play anymore, and you're done at 22. That really was the hard thing. That it was over so early. We really didn't know much about what was going up in Canada with the senior and A and senior B and Man and Minto Cup, because there was no internet back then. So it's just who you bumped into along the way, that could tell you a little bit about what was going on, elsewhere. So there wasn't really anywhere to go after you're done. I think that was the hardest part. So.
Understand. Rad, I have 3 more questions. Do we still have recording time with
Oh
this?
yeah,
Zoom?
this records unlimited. Plus, I'm doing it on a tape recorder as a backup, just in case.
Okay, so we still have time.
Oh yeah, it's unlimited.
Okay, bear with me on this one. Why did you lose?
Oh.
In the final analysis, why did your team lose that game? Gary.
They scored basically one more goal than we did. We outshot Ontario 50-28 or 29. We came back and tied it at the end of the second period. They went ahead by 2 goals. We came back by 1. Why did we lose it? I guess it just, as was said earlier, wasn't our day to win. And that's the easiest way I can explain it. It wasn't due to any mistakes, any lack of effort, any referees' bad calls. It was just the way she unfolded.
Joe?
I've got 2 answers for that, Pierre. I think we lost that game because they outplayed us, right? I mean, we lost 12-8, right? So it wasn't the last one to put in a net. They outplayed us, right? But I think in thinking about the loss later on, I obviously came up with something, what I believe was the reason why and it wasn't because we were outplayed, right? It was probably a lack of preparation, of mental preparation for that game. But I can touch on that later if you want to get into it. But I think we were just outplayed, right? That's what that was all about. That one game, that's what it was.
It wasn't a better team that you played against. It was a team that played better that day.
Yeah, because we could have beat them. That one game, we just did not, they all played us. We didn't play to our potential.
Dave, Peterborough had great players. Some will play pro with you afterwards. In the final analysis, from your standpoint, why did you lose?
Basically the same as all the other fellows. I mean, you look back at it after X number of years. Those were two very good teams. I mean, I look at the Peterborough roster. I look at our roster. There were probably 13 or 14 future Hall of Famers, on two key teams combined, somewhere around there. I think we had about 6 on our team, 6 or 7 maybe, and they had about the same. I don't think. I mean, we felt we were going to win, and I'm sure they did too. But I don't think either team was really favored. If anybody was favored, maybe they were a little bit going in, just because of it wasn't home floor specifically because they were playing in Brantford, but they didn't have the trip and living out of a hotel and all that sort of stuff. But somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. And on that particular night, they outplayed us. They got off to a great start. And for whatever reason, we came out flat, whether it was inexperience or nerves or, sitting in the tunnel for a long time, whatever. They got off to a great start. We didn't adapt. And then from there on, and they had a hot goaltender, and that's something that can happen in lacrosse and hockey. You run into a hot goaltender. I mean, I've been on the other side of that, and I've been the guy who's been hot, and you come out of a game feeling like, well, maybe we didn't really deserve to win it, but hey, you're all part of the team. But that was the thing. They on that particular night, they were overall better than us, and Pat Baker had a phenomenal game.
That
Certainly
was my first ever,
no fault to any of our guys, certainly.
that was my first ever Man Cup that I went to. It's 50 years ago. You would have won the series if it had been a series, Dave. No doubt. They were an old team. You guys were young and fast. I think you would have won it in 5. It would have been a best of 7. You were just
I think we would have too. And I've had this discussion with guys on the Peterborough team, and they kind of feel the same way. Well, I know John Davis and I have talked about it, just on the phone or whatever, and we joke about it a little bit. And his thing is, well, tough beans. You didn't win that game. That's all that mattered. would be his. That's JD's story, and he's sticking to it. But really, they had an older team. They had probably the vast majority of their players were in their 30s, and we had a young team and a much more physical team. And yeah, I think we would have, but it wasn't a 7-game series, so that's that's the way it goes.
would have won a 3-game series too.
Possibly.
Jim,
Possibly.
we know why you lost the Cornell game. It was a better team. Why did you lose the other game? In the final analysis, you lose by 1. Why did you lose that game?
All right. So 2 years earlier, we were ranked 6th going into playoffs my freshman year. And we put together a hell of a month of May and ended up coming from 6th spot and actually winning the national title. And that was, huge for the school. Then the next year, we're like 15-0, and we win it because we were at our peak. Where we just nobody was going to beat us, and probably some of the Bishop teams, I think, probably were like that some years. And then, but it's really hard to win back to back championships. So
Creepy.
you miss something, doesn't add up quite the same way, even though you have all that you need to do it back to back. Something happens, because you maybe the hunger that you had, maybe it's just slightly less than what you need to win back to back. I don't know. Why do you lose that game? I don't know. give Roanoke credit for getting the best out of themselves and losing to us in the semifinals the year before in a tight game. They probably thought about that for a year. So, they were ready to play that day for sure. We were too. It wasn't like we weren't, so.
That's another one here. Has losing a game made you a better person? What have you learned as not just as an athlete, but as a person growing up? What have you learned that made you a better person from that loss? Gary.
Just not to take anything for granted. Keep your mind open. You're gonna have good situations in life. You're gonna have your wins and your losses. Losing the big game taught you how to lose the big game, and that you can find things in that loss that you can take as a small win. And so I've carried that on in life. When I was a school administrator, principal in a junior high, and situations I dealt with, there's days when you didn't know if you were winning the battle or losing the battle, but you knew you had to stick to it and stick to it to the bitter end. And most times situations resolved well. And I think being able to look at two sides of things, winning and the losing, has helped me in my life, even in my career.
Mm-hmm. Joe, how has it made you a better person?
Well, I guess I spend a lot of time analyzing things, what happened and how do we grow from them and how do we make things better and why did that happen? And in business and everything, it's like sometimes what seems to be the obvious reason is not the obvious reason, right? There's more behind it, right? There's when you get a no for an answer, it might not be the obvious no. There's maybe other reasons why somebody gives you no for an answer. So when I look back at those games, and like I said, this was a pickup team, right? It was like an all-star team type of going in, and what I realized is that it's individuals, and individuals all have different goals in trying to achieve something. And when I was trying out for the team, my goal was to win the gold medal, right? It was expected. I need to win the gold medal. When you look at other players, some of them got selected, and for them, that was their gold medal. They made the team, right? And then you had other players that maybe wanted to be, hey, I'm going to be on a national, right? I'm going to be on a national coverage here. I want to stand out, right? I want to get that attention. So you've got a whole bunch of reasons why people made the team, and I think that what I learned is that when you're a group of people, and whether it be in sports or anything, you've got to understand what their motivation, what their goal is. And then the hardest part, and the part you got to work on, is how do you bring everybody to have the ultimate goal together, right? How do you bring them to that ultimate goal? And I think, the reason we lost that game is because we probably did not have a full team of players that really want to achieve the gold medal, right? And I'm not saying that they didn't care. Unconsciously, they had already won their gold medal. And I learned this. I'll tell you why I got this. I met Annie Laurent many years later. She was a alpine skier, skied for Team Canada in Lillehammer, and we're having dinner one night. It was like a benefit night, and I asked her, right, great story to me about Lillehammer, and she said to me that the biggest regret she had in her life, in her athlete's as a career as a skier, was all year she had worked to make the goal to make the Canadian alpine team to go to Lillehammer. And she went there, she made the team, and she realized after the games that mentally she was trying to win the races, but she had already won. She had made the team. Her goal had been reached, right? And she regrets the fact that she did not have a higher expectation of winning a gold medal. That just making the Olympic team for her was the ultimate achievement. And I think that's what I learned, right? I learned that, hey, you have to understand not everybody's got the same goals as you. And as a, difference between coaching and leading, as a leader, you've got to bring everybody to have that same ultimate goal. That's the biggest, that's the lesson I got out of it, Pierre. No, I'm not sure if I'm clear, but that's the lesson I got from it that I carried through my life, right, my career. Yeah.
Dave, what did you learn from that one?
Well, I guess from that, not just that loss, but every loss, victory, whatever. I guess I learned that that in the grand scheme of things, the sun's still going to come up the next day. Not to linger. You do your best, you give it your best effort, and sometimes it doesn't fall for you. And by the same token, there are times when you give your best effort, you do everything you possibly can, and you have a victory. But your life still has to go on. And that's I think what I learned. So I think I found after that particular game and on into my coaching career, not to get too high or too low after a big win or a big loss. To look at to analyze the situation, look at the positives, take positives out of it, and then move on to the next obstacle, whatever that might be.
Jim, from those two losses, how has that made you a better person?
I think I realized that you can't control the outcome of everything. That really the only thing you can control is your effort. And if you've really, maxed out on that side personally on what your effort is as part of that team, you really have to be satisfied with whatever happens. And like as the fellows say, sometimes that gets you the gold, and sometimes you get the silver for whatever reason the lacrosse gods want that to happen that day. So, it just effort's everything. Really, it really is. You think of people you coach. You have two players. One's more talented, and then one will run through a brick wall. And sometimes you put your money behind the guy who's going to run through the brick wall versus the talented guy who doesn't work very hard. So I think effort's everything.
Mm-hmm. Okay, guys, we've been talking for about an hour about something that has happened 50 years ago, and you're talking about it as if it had happened yesterday. You have vivid memories, clear memories of a situation that has happened 50 years ago, and trust me, 50 years is a long time. Well,
Oh,
You just froze, Pierre. Oh,
we lost.
talk about
it
you,
might
but
happen. Here it comes. It's just a delay. We
Yeah,
momentarily lost you, Pierre. We lost you. You talked about 50 years ago.
okay, well, I'll ask again. It has happened 50 years ago, and we're still talking about it. You're talking about it because it means something for you, I presume. Does it still hurt? Why is it still with you 50 years later? Gary?
Well, in my case, where we had made a 2-year commitment, and our ultimate goal was to get to the gold medal game and try to win a gold medal. We came very close, and it was quite an accomplishment. 19 years old, and you're representing the province. You're to Canada Games. There's media. There's a lot of attention by other athletes, and you've had success even by losing. We had a major success for our province, especially in the sport of lacrosse, being so early in the game and our development. So that was reason it's been on my mind forever. You just don't lose a game like that and forget about it. I've been in other championship games, but that was my first kick at the cat for a Canadian championship. And the players on the team, many of us, we still see each other daily, or periodically. I golf with a couple of guys, and we bring up the game. We just had our 50th anniversary, which we celebrated in August. So the game has always been on our mind. We've been nominated for the Nova Scotia Sport Hall of Fame, and we're going to be putting our nomination in again this year. Hopefully they'll consider again. But it stays fresh in your mind, a game like that. We'd made such a commitment to the effort, and everybody put in such an effort that I don't see it going away ever. Just that it was such a powerful moment in my life.
Joe?
Yeah, I'm just going to say, unfortunately, I never had the opportunity again to play for what I'm going to consider a real winning team. Right. I think the moment I did was my senior years, just 2 years with, when we played in the Can-Am League, and the second year we were dominating like 12-1 was our record, and we pulled out for an unfortunate reason. But I had never, been on a winning team, and I really, that to me was I dwell on it because I think we should have won, and I missed that opportunity. Right. Gary, if you would have won that game, you'd be in the Hall of Fame in Nova Scotia. I can't help but to think of that, right? And say, you came in second, but if you would have won that game, you probably would have been in the Hall of Fame, right? And that dwells.
We think about that a lot,
right? And that dwells on you, right? So same, like I think about it because that was the team, and even though we had the year after we tried it again, we didn't have the same commitment from players. Players, didn't show up for the camp, or didn't want to play for whatever reasons that belongs to them. But for me, that's the that, and it also we talked about how did it make you better, or it helped me understand what you need to be in a winning team and to have a winning team. Like I know what it takes. I'm convinced that I know what it takes to put a winning team together because of that loss.
Mm-hmm. Dave?
Well, I think, growing up, following lacrosse as a kid, the Mann Cup was your goal. That was that bauble sort of that you aspired to winning. Now, I played in 2 Minto Cups, but they were short and sweet. We played the Green Game. We sort of went into them knowing that if we won a game, we'd be thrilled. Playing the Green Gales and then playing the Lakeshore Maple Leafs in 1970. Those are just phenomenal teams. But the team that we put together, or not we put together, but our management put together in Vancouver, I started in 72, and 73 was this Mann Cup. Our goal was to win a Mann Cup, and as soon as possible. And it's funny looking back over my playing career, the losses stand out more than the wins. The victories, like we won the Mann Cup 4 years later in 77. And I don't remember much about that series, to be honest with you. But that 73, I look back and I tend to, what could I have done differently? Would it have been, well, like, Rad, you said, would it have made it a difference if I'd started that game? Who knows? Whereas, when we won in 77, I look back at it and we won. So, hey, I'm not going to look back and criticize myself or anybody else. What the heck, we won. So I think that's part of it is that, just being my first Mann Cup, going back there with such great hopes and such a closely knit group. And then for whatever reasons, and there weren't any reasons really, it was a whole schmozzle of things. We just didn't do it. It still sticks in my mind. And it always will.
Mm-hmm. Jim, you took time in your book to dwell upon many fantastic things that have happened, but you had pages about losing those games 50 years ago. Why does it stick with you today again?
I think as a player, you're just thrilled to be able to play in games that matter and mean something. And you hope that you win them all, but you won't win them all. But at least you got to play in games that actually had some meaning, and at the time, I don't know if they still do, but I'll give you an example, like playing for Canada just a few months after that, and the miracle that happened over in England. I didn't know any of the guys on the team really. I knew a few of the guys on scholarship in the US, but I didn't know who Carm Collins was, or John Grant Sr., or, Jimmy Wasson, and here I am, I'm dropped in like a Martian from out of nowhere into this group, and I don't even realize I'm playing with some of the greatest players to ever play the game. It was just because I didn't have any context. But here I am, I'm selling my books. A few weeks back, they had a World Sixes women's tournament in Oshawa, and Sandy Lynch had come back from Vancouver to visit people back east. And Sandy went out of his way to set up a time he'd come by my booth that day, one of the days I was selling books. And we spent about 45 minutes just talking about 1978, and that's the bond that you have from playing with people who go through something really extraordinary together, and and that bond really is with everyone. When John Grant Sr. lost his daughter last year, and I went up to Peterborough, and the place was just packed because the impact he made on that city, and but there were all kinds of Team Canada 78 guys there that day, and you've created a family through the experience.
Well, guys, I think we kind of went around what we wanted. So I think the time now for me is to thank you and to acknowledge the fact that it was a privilege for me to talk with 4 outstanding athletes who are also outstanding gentlemen. I appreciate truly the passion that you have for this game. I thank you for it. And it was just an honor. It was just an honor to have the privilege of listening to your journeys, your emotions, your insights, and to see that this game is the game that you love. So thank you very much. I don't know how we bow out from this, but
Well, thank you very much from the East Coast.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you very much from the other side of the world.
Thanks from the middle.
And from the thriving metropolis of Ajax, Ontario.
There you go.
Downtown or the suburbs?
Yeah.
Near the
here's,
lake.
here's what we're going to do. We're probably going to listen to this once or twice, and Rad and I will probably write the article. As I said, we want to honor and respect what you've said, so we'll be sending you, not in the coming days,
No.
but we should have that within the blog that we run, which is called Think Lacrosse. We should have that before the end of this calendar year, but we will not have it without your approval on the content of what we will have written. Okay? That's it.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Guys,
Thanks a lot, Pierre. Brad.
Thanks a lot.
So much
folks.
fun. It was great.
Great
Great talking
chat.
with you guys.
Thank you, guys.
Keep up
Happy
the
to
good
speak
work
with you.
on Think Lacrosse there, Pierre and Rad.
Yeah,
Good
we're
job.
having fun with it. We have a lot of
Yep.
fun with it.
We're having fun.
Hey, Jim, you're more than welcome to contribute any of you fellows want to contribute an article, you're more than welcome to contribute an article to Think Lacrosse.
All right. Well, let's
Give it some thought. Give us some thought.
You're all the thinking man. You're all the thinking man in lacrosse. It's past my bedtime, guys. Thank you. Thank you.
Hey,
nice
if you
to see
see
all of
you,
you guys.
Thanks, Pierre.
Nice to see all of you guys.
Dave,
Y'all
if you see Mike French, tell him I said hi.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I'll be talking to Mike this week. Actually, I talked to him a week or so ago.
Yeah.
He was up for Thanksgiving with his mom up in St. Catharines,
Ah,
or Niagara on the Lake.
yeah.
Okay, guys,
Great, folks.
past my bedtime. Take care.
Take care.
Bye,
Take
guys.
care, guys.
Yeah.
All
Bye-bye.
the best. Bye, Joe.
Okay,
Thank you.
nice seeing you guys.
I know.
I don't know how we get out.
Oh, how do you get here? Oh, what's this? Not now.
Oh. There goes Dave.
It's to the right, probably right, Lord. Probably says end.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
right,
boss
Lord. The
does
little
this
rectangle
thing.
says end.
By the way, Gloria, Garnett's wife,
Yes.
we tried to locate her for our reunion.
Oh, she's in Amherstburg,
Yeah.
Ontario, down near Windsor.
Yeah, we had no idea where she might have gone. I understood she remarried. Is that correct?
she's actually remarried twice. She's had some tough luck with husbands.
Oh my jumping.
Yeah, she married an
Gloria was a
American.
sweetheart.
Oh, she's a lovely lady. The whole clan's down there.
Stormy and
Stormy's actually near Arroyo, Ontario. Stormy was he had a military career, and he was
Right.
in board, and he retired retired on a Friday and went back on the Monday doing the same job on contract.
yeah, they let them do that. And his daughter, I forgot her name.
Oh, there was Kelly.
Kelly, yeah.
Kelly is down in Amherstburg. And,
Right.
And now having met you, I want to do a story on you for Think Lacrosse, because we've had very little of tapping into people on the East Coast. So now that I have your contact information with email,
Yeah.
and how I do it, Gary, is I'll write an article, getting as much information as I can, and then I'll ask you a dozen questions, and then you'll answer, and we'll
Sure.
just and our style is that we don't release anything that you haven't read and you're not 100%
Sure. Exactly. Yeah.
because
no,
we don't
great.
want any misinformation. And so right now, if you want to start digging up some old pictures of you or any of the teams you played with.
Yeah, I could surely do that. But I was asked to, and I was interviewed for the program, Lacrosse Legends.
Yes.
And I won that for the Maritime. So if you were to view that.
Yeah, I'll probably get some ideas from that too.
You get some good ideas from that.
Yep.
And it also has the 3-minute clip or the 4-minute clip of the last minute of the gold medal game.
I've watched that more than once, and I felt so bad. And you know, it's funny. My name is Rad, R-A-D, and I know Garnet was Garnet, but to our family, his name was actually Rad. I was named after
right?
I was named after Garnet Knight. And you go, well, how did you get the name Garnet into Rad? My mother was Garnet's older sister, and she was like around 2 when he was born. He was named after his dad, Garnet Knight.
Right.
And she couldn't pronounce the word Garnet. She bastardized it into Rad.
Yeah.
So our whole clan knows him as Rad Knight.
Isn't that something?
And I was named after him because my dad was he liked Garnet so much, he considered him like a brother.
Sure.
And although they named me after my dad, Robert, they've always called me Rad. And I said, why don't you just call me Rad? It's a name people don't forget, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But I've gone to Prague many times, 4 times with the Green Gales in that tournament there. And I always ask the guys on the Nova Scotia team, I said, have you ever heard of Garnet Knight? Oh yeah, there's a trophy named after him, or there was a league named after him. And
tournament that it was
that's right.
Tournament. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think his daughters went down one year for the tournament to present trophies or whatever.
Yeah.
And I can tell you, I will be calling them tomorrow to say, hey, guess what? I had this great conversation. And there were 2 things you said, how Garnet defended the players. You never ripped another player. From Garnet. And I also mentioned that he wasn't one to throw out compliments. You had to earn the compliment.
I'll tell you a funny story. It's with regard to Garnet. Well, we had a tryout for the football team, and of course, it was a big thing. If you made that football team in the West End, you were like a big gun. And this one guy, remember, after practice, he came up to Garnet and says, "Hey, Garnet, when you going to make your first cuts?" He says, "Don't worry, Donnie, you'll be the first to know." I can remember. Holy jumping. Anyways, how Garnet got, well, I can remember this distinctly, and I use this all the time. He was in my kitchen waiting for my brother. They were going out to do something. And I'd been caught drinking. I was only 14. I was running with some bad kids. So anyways, I was home suffering my punishment for 6 months, and I wasn't allowed out of the house on the weekends. My father was very strict. And I was in, and he said, "Oh, Gary, you want to play lacrosse?" I said, "Well, I don't know if I'll be allowed." I said, "I'd like to." And my older brother, Rick, he said, "Yeah, I'll play." I'll come over. And Gary says, "Yeah, well, Gary," he said, you're grounded right now, but if you want to dance, you got to learn to pay the fiddler." Right. So I took that message. I'm going to be paying my punishment, and then I'll move on and
learn from Ian Hill. Did you know Ian Hill?
No.
Ian Hill was a good friend of Garnet's, and he was in the Navy as well, and they both ended up in on the East Coast, and they were really, really tight. And but Ian came back to Ontario. Like Garnet spent a lot of years in Nova Scotia.
Yes, he did.
In fact, my first ever time to Halifax was to my wife was there in business. We went down and we went out to lobster dinner with Gloria and Garnet. And well, I'll let Gloria know I was talking to you and that you guys were thinking of her around the 50-year.
Yeah, I certainly was. I searched everywhere.
That's
We
unfortunate.
were online. My wife and I were online checking names, and
Well, she's got a different last name now too.
yeah, see, that was
it was Powers. I think.
yeah. I found that out afterwards, and
is there a website anywhere that was that photos from your 50th?
I'll tell you what we do have on Facebook. We have the Nova Scotia 1973 Nova Scotia Facebook group.
Okay,
You could check there. There would be a lot of photos, and
I will do that.
we set that up to try to contact players. We got all our players except for 3 to come to the reunion. 2 guys, one Dr. Stevie Pelham. Oh, what did I do?
Oh, you're fine. You just lost your video. That's all. But I can hear you.
Yeah, no, that's all right. But anyways, Dr. Stevie Pelham, he was traveling. Mikey Chandler, he lives out in Colorado, so he was going to do some traveling. Couldn't make it. Gary Hirschman, one of our goalies, I couldn't find him anywhere. My sister found him 2 hours before our meeting. He was living in Bridgewater. And we got him by phone. We got Donnie Kowarski. He was out west doing work. He's now with the National Lacrosse League. He's the referee in chief.
Okay. Do you remember a player that they referred to as the China Clipper?
No.
Okay.
I remember the name. I didn't.
Yeah, because somebody was telling me, "Oh, you should write a story in the China Clipper," and I said, "Well, I'm trying to find out." And of course, nowadays you couldn't call him out. I think he was an Asian player.
Yeah.
Geez, there's another name that crossed my mind there. I can't remember now, but I will go to your Facebook site for sure, and we'll follow up and do an article on you, and we'll have some fun with that. And it was great to meet, guys. It's a small world, though, eh? My gosh, eh?
Well, here's how interesting it is. When we were making contacts through email, Dave, when I gave the little brief story of my situation, and I mentioned some players, Mike French was one of them.
Right.
And Mike French, of course, he's in the Hall of Fame. He was
yeah. Mike French scored 5 goals on me in one period one night.
Yeah, I imagine he would. He was good at filling the net.
Yeah.
But anyways, Dave emails me back. He says, "Gee," he said, "I didn't realize it. I might have refereed your final game." And then you said Mike French. He says Mike French was my best man in 1996.
Get out of here! Wow.
Can you imagine how close it all is?
My uncle, Garnet's brother, went down to Halifax and spent a few months down there, and he played some lacrosse down there. I think it was like, I don't know if it was senior or junior, kind of a house league, whatever. But he played. The club was called the Halifax Colonels.
Yeah, I played with the Halifax Colonels.
Maybe you had no reason to remember it. His name was Kim Knight, who was Garnet's brother.
Okay, yeah.
Because we thought it was a cool name, and I don't know, was it anything to do with KFC or they were just called the Colonels?
Yeah, no, it did have to do with KFC because one of the players, his father was the owner.
Oh, well, there you go. And that's lacrosse's scenario.
Ernie Edwards was the owner, and the player on the team was David Edwards. He's since passed away, but yeah, Colonel Ernie, he was famous in Halifax for
Well, I just thought it was a cool
Fried
name, the
Chicken.
Colonels, and I'm sure you had red and white uniforms, probably. Well, a great time talking, and again, it's how you can connect with lacrosse people. Eh? It is a small community.
You know, there's 2 other names I'm going to mention to you that I had pictures of, or a picture of. I was checking Johnny Davis in the 1977 Founders. The president, whatever the senior Canadian championships was, it was a picture. Johnny Davis moves around, Nova Scotian player. I had him penned in, but anyways, that was a picture. And when I was drafted by the Quebec Caribou, and I had a real good camp, and there was a picture or a headline in French, "Bottomé déjà, already a surprise," you know,
nice.
A camp. And the picture beside it is Gaylord Palace. Gaylord Palace, who is a famous native player.
For sure, absolutely. Palace.
Yeah.
Jimmy
And,
Gow was on that team. Did you know Jimmy Gow would have Peterborough? He played for the
Yeah, well,
You
yeah, I
guys
would
won
have.
the championship.
Yeah, we did, but I didn't. I was going to university,
Oh, yeah.
and
You
I had
were
to
in
come
real
back to
life.
write some exams, and so they were thinking about putting me up on the up in Owen Sound, right?
Right.
And there was some politics going on with the selection of players and that,
I'm sure.
you know. And so, anyways, I didn't return.
Who coached that team?
Who coached that team? Nino
Martinello.
Martinello, yeah.
Okay, because there was a lot of talent while you guys won the championship.
Yeah.
I remember Gow telling me I got to know Jimmy a bit because he was at Queens when I went, and they were just delighted to have a Friday afternoons to have somebody strap on the pads and they could fire balls out. But he said when we won the championship, because at some point I think they beat Montreal, which was Bishop's,
Yeah.
and he said, you know, Bishop was such a taskmaster on fitness, and he said we probably had half the roster had like 20-pound pot bellies.
Yeah, yeah.
Play lacrosse, and
Jimmy Higgs was on that team.
Yes, he was.
And
there was half a dozen guys from Huntsville, I think.
Yeah, the Terry Sanderson was on that team.
Terry walked out of junior C lacrosse and made that team.
Yeah.
I knew Terry a bit, but I know his brother Lindsay quite well. Lindsay and I chat once in a while.
Well, they grew up in Nova Scotia.
Yes, that's right. They were.
Yeah, they grew up in Greenwood. I think his father was in the military.
Yeah, I asked him.
When I went to that camp, Terry and I got to know each other quite well, right? Because both from Nova Scotia. Anyways, yeah.
He was a phenomenally successful coach, and it was, again, another person that just went too quickly. Eh?
Yeah, really.
Yeah. Yeah, and I asked Lindsay, how did you guys end up in Orangeville? And he goes, there was two places. His dad got transferred, and he said the houses were $500 cheaper in Orangeville. It was
there you go.
11,000 versus 10,500.
Yeah, that would be reason enough, eh?
Oh, it would be. So, anyways, we will stay in touch, sir, for sure.
Okay, excellent.
Take care.
Great chatting, Red.
Yeah, it was fun. Bye now.
All right, bye-bye. I think I know how to get out of this.
Well,